But there is a super chat question. Um,
What do you think about people getting fired for saying racist things on camera?
I guess that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
The racism thing is a lot more. I think it's a lot more difficult to answer because I see that as different from. Because if someone is truly racist, right, and you have like a diverse workforce or a diverse company, that is a problem. That's a big problem. Okay, so, but we also have to think about, like, when you fire someone, you're also taking away income that individual's family members rely on, right? And so people, just by being associated with that individual, might lose access to food, to housing, to all of that. And so is there maybe a potential for a learning experience, right? And look, I feel like what I'm saying right now is going to, because of the climate we're in, it's going to lead to a little bit of pushback, and that's fine. I'm open to, dealing with that and having a dialogue about that. But we just need to think about, okay, what's the best option in this situation? In other cases, though, I don't know what you guys think, but I just see a lot of nonsense about, oh, this person should be let go, or they should be fired because they said something 25 years ago, or there's a tweet from 2009. Like, I saw that they were trying to cancel Jameel Hill over something she had tweeted literally in 2009. And, she took ownership of it, and guess what? People are allowed to change. People are allowed to grow. I certainly hope I've grown since 2009. And I don't want anyone judging me based on who I was in 2009. I want people to look at me now and see the growth and see the progress.
yeah.
So that's where I come at from
Yeah,
that.
I
for
mean,
that
there's
question.
cases of like baseball players that were drafted and they said like some horrible thing. They tweeted out some horrible thing when they were like 14, and then that, like, they were literally they were kids, when they did it, and that is still affecting them today as professional adults. The thing about like whether you should be fired for saying something racist on camera, like my answer is like non-satisfactory, is that there is no blanket thing. Like, it depends. Like, it depends on a million things, because certain thing, like, okay, would you fire someone for saying like all lives matter, for example? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that has been coded as like racist. It's a newer thing though, right? Like, what if they tweeted that like 10 years ago, like where it wasn't part of it hadn't entered part of the discourse or the lexicon of 2020, right? And you're getting into very, very kind of wishy-washy waters if you just kind of apply some sort of bit broad standard on like whether you should be fired for saying something racist. I mean, like, there is interpretations to be had. I mean, some of them are not, like, obviously if you say like, there's some things you can say that are not up to interpretation, but there's some things that are. And then who has the power to make those interpretations? Who ultimately is the person who is making those decisions? I mean, that's what we really got to think about, and we got to be careful of.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually, so the thing that I forgot about earlier it's relevant to this as well, is the fact that, like, I think the corporations totally are woke in the sense that, like, they actually do believe in anti-racism. They actually do believe in diversity. The problem is that, like, they're operating a business in a market that they're more concerned about their profits at the end of the day. And so, like, all of that, like, any virtue that comes along with anti-racism and diversity, and there certainly are a ton, obviously, it gets filtered through that lens. And so, would you rather have your HR department deciding if something is anti-racist, or your union with a proper grievance policy? And then when you have like, a union, like, you also develop a culture of solidarity among membership. Not necessarily, not every time, but far more likely, and a healthy democratic union would, that coworkers are seeing each other as brothers and sisters, looking out for one another, rather than pitting one, actually doing the boss's work of pitting yourself against others and fighting against each other in the labor market. And, I think, like, in a socialist society, what would we say, what would happen in a better world? Sure. I mean, like, I'm sure, like, you obviously would need to push back against racist or bigoted statements. But, when it comes to cancel culture, for instance, like, the question is, does this get in the way of, like, the relevant work at hand, or the relevant task at hand? Like, is what someone is saying actually like encumbering their ability to work with others, or like do we have freedom of speech, like not just in public society but like all of society?
Well,
um
that's, I mean, the big point that you made there is that like if it's put in the hands of HR departments, we're gonna have, it's gonna boomerang back and affect poor working people. I mean, that's just the reality of it. HR doesn't work for you; it works for management. That's just a fundamental thing. They don't care
to
about
prevent
you.
lawsuits and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to be extra cautious when it comes to these types of accusations, and probably go overboard in terms of punishment or firings, because they want to avoid a lawsuit. I mean, that's one of the main purposes of HR. Yeah.
Right. So like if there was in a situation in which there was a, like you said, a large, robust, healthy labor union, and some worker in the union got caught saying something racist on camera, and then the labor union got together and they decided that that worker should be expelled for whatever reason, that's a healthier way to deal with it than if like you just leave that decision up to the bosses, which is what it is now, you know, and like they'll be the ones interpreting if whatever the person said is racist or not, or, you know, or a fireable offense or not. And that, just giving them that power, giving them more power over us to fire us, is just, I think it's just counterproductive. It's just going to end up hurting more than it helps.